Erling Haaland currently sits second in the Golden Boot race this season with 14 goals. But is he actually having that good of a season? Scoring goals and getting assists isn't the only way to measure greatness in the Premier League, and in this video we're going to be looking at every team's most expensive player so far and ranking them. Now, to find out who the most expensive player from each team was, of course I went onto Transfer Market and used the data that they provided. Now we're going to be using a tier list that you can see on the screen now to rank each player on their performances so far this season. Now, before putting each player into their list and, ranking, I guess, I looked at goals, assists, defensive contribution, and consistent performances because, of course, not every player on this list is going to play in the same position. So let's jump straight into ranking these players in no particular order, but we're going to be going from like the second half of the table to the top half of the table. And up first, we've got Southampton and Taylor Harwood-Bellis. Now, Harwood-Bellis started his career actually at Manchester City, and before going on loan to Anderlecht, Stoke and Blackburn, it was at Burnley where he really went to, solidify himself and make a name for himself, as they, of course, won the championship title. Last season, he spent the season at Southampton on loan, and again, he was a massive part of their season, which saw him get promoted to the Premier League, which also included a permanent move in his contract. You know, they said if Southampton won the league or got promoted, they'd buy him, and that's what they did. However, he hasn't really lived up to the price tag and the hype that's was made around him because of his performances, but to be fair, Southampton in general this season have been pretty awful. It will be interesting to see now that Southampton's got a new manager, but so far with his performances in Southampton's season, I'm going to put him in D. Next up, we have Wolves, and who else could it be but Matheus Cunha? Now, Cunha actually played for Wolves on loan in January 2023, and he was so good that Wolves obviously made the deal permanent, and to be honest, he's been one of the best players since he's joined. He was incredible last season for Wolves, and with Pedro Neto leaving to go to Chelsea, Cunha's basically the main man now. He's on 10 goals and 4 assists, and I know Wolves have just hired a new manager and they're doing okay now, but if it wasn't for Cunha, they'd be in a lot more trouble than they are at the minute. Like I said, now they've got a new manager. It'd be interesting to see if Wolves can turn it around, because to be honest, they've done alright since he's actually took charge. But he's been amazing this season, and I'm putting him in A because he lets himself down a bit. You know, we saw what happened with Ipswich when he had that massive big deal with the Ipswich coaching staff or whatever. So, yeah, sometimes he lets himself down a little bit. He just needs to put his head down and focus on his football a little bit more. But he's been amazing, so we're going to be putting him in there. Moving on to Ipswich, and of course we have Liam Delap, who is the son of absolute Premier League bowler Rory Delap. I mean, everyone remembers his throw-ins in the Premier League. It was unreal. Now, Liam actually started his career at Man City, only playing twice with loan moves at Stoke, Preston and Hull, where he wasn't really too impressive. However, in the summer, Ipswich took a gamble and bought him for 20 million, and he's actually done pretty alright so far. You know, bearing in mind Ipswich are struggling to stay up, they haven't got the best squad. He's managed to get 6 goals and 1 assist for him so far this season. Bearing in mind, he only scored 8 goals all season for Hull in the Championship, so he's proved he can do it at the Premier League. You know, he's still young, he's only 22, so, you know, he's still got plenty of time to grow and develop as a player. He's impressed me so far. You know, it's his first season, and he's done alright, so for that reason, I'm going to be putting him in C. Next up, we have Leicester, and their brand new, their massive summer signing, I guess, Bilal El Khanous. He joined from Genk in Belgium, where he played over 90 times, and he's even been capped 18 times for Morocco, and he's really established himself as a kind of a tricky winger, I guess. He's not really had that much to celebrate though this season for Leicester, although they was kind of awful under Steve Cooper. He's only had 1 goal and 1 assist, and to be honest, he's even struggled to get minutes on the pitch. With Ruud van Nistelrooy taking over, you know, he may be a little bit more involved now, and Ruud might bring the best out of him, I guess, but for 20 million, he's not been worth it at all so far, so he's going in D. Moving on to Everton, and we have defender Jared Branthwaite. Now, Branthwaite started his career at Carlisle before moving to Everton in 2020, and after loan moves at Blackburn and PSV, where he actually won the league, by the way. He did win the league at PSV, so, you know, got to give him a little bit of credit for that. He really started to establish himself last season for Everton. He was a massive part of Everton staying up last season, and he even made himself an England international because of his performances. He has kept 5 clean sheets in his first 9 starts for Everton, and it's obvious that he plays so well, and Everton do so much better with him in the team compared to when he's not in there. Like I said, he's been a massive part of Everton's season. He's still very young. He's only going to get better. He's still only going to play for England more. He's going to get more confidence. He's going to get more experience. He's going to be a great player in the future, but for right now, I'm putting him in B. Moving on to Crystal Palace, and their expensive player is Eze. Now, Eze started his career at QPR, where he played over 100 times over a 4-year period before earning his big money move to the Premier League with Crystal Palace in 2020 for 17 million. Now, his first 2 seasons, he never really stood out and he never really made an impact, but from the 22-23 season and last season, he was amazing, getting 14 goals and assists in 22-23 and 17 goals and assists last season. This season, he's on 9 goals and assists in all competitions so far, just in 19 games. And with Elise obviously leaving to go to Bayern Munich in the summer, Eze is the main man in the team now. I'm sure he'd like to get on the goal scoring side a little bit more, but you know what? He's done alright. He's been their best player so far, I reckon. So for that reason, I'm putting him in B. Next up, we have West Ham, and of course, the most expensive player is going to be Jarrod Bowen. Now, Bowen started his career at Hereford, where he only played 8 games before moving to Hull, where he played 124 times and scored 52 goals. He joined West Ham in January 2020, and in his first and second season, he kind of struggled to make an impact. He wasn't as good as people thought he was going to be. But ever since the 21-22 season, he's been on absolute fire, getting 29 GA, 20 GA and 30 GA last season. Last season he was unreal, and this season he started alright as well, getting 10 goals and assists so far. And of course he was the hero for West Ham, scoring the winner in extra time in the Conference League final. He's been decent this season. Obviously there's a little bit of, confusion going on at West Ham because the manager's not really had the impact that everyone thought he would. But he's definitely going to get 20 GA again this season, so I'm going to put him in B. Moving on to Manchester United, and their most expensive player is Rasmus Haaland. And after spending a few years at Copenhagen and Sturm Graz, it was at Atalanta where he really started to establish himself as a big name player. In his one and only season at Atalanta, he scored 10 goals in 34 games, earning himself a £64 million move to Giants Manchester United. And to be fair, last season, in his first season, he did pretty well. He scored 16 goals in 43 games. But this season, he's been awful. This season, he's just scored twice in 13 games, and he's even struggling to get on the pitch for Manchester United. To be fair though, United have been awful, the full team non-stop this season. Man United have been so inconsistent and awful, and they need a massive overhaul and change in January, and especially the summer. But now that Ruben Amorim, even though he hasn't had the best of starts, I think once he gets a few players in that he wants, and get some players out, I think he'll do better. But it's important to realise that Haaland is also 21. He's only very, very young. But for now, with that massive fee that he hasn't really lived up to, I'm going in D. Moving on to Brentford, and their most expensive player is also their best player, and that's Brian Mbeumo. He started his career at Troyes, I'm probably not pronouncing that right, in France, where he played over 40 times before earning his £5.8 million move to Brentford in 2019, when they were still in the Championship. He was a massive part of Brentford's team that got promoted, scoring 8 goals and setting up 7. And ever since he's been promoted to the Premier League, he's just been getting better and better. He got 9 goals and 8 assists in his first season, and 9 goals and 6 assists last season. This season though, he's absolutely stepped up massively, getting 10 goals and 3 assists already in just 21 games. Considering the money that Brentford paid for him, £5.8 million today, is kind of nothing. He's shown himself that he can play in the Premier League. He's definitely lived up and, exceeded and repaid that transfer fee. He's been amazing this season. He's going to get better every season. He's still very young. I'm going to put him in S. Newcastle are up next, and their most expensive player isn't actually Alexander Isak, despite them saying they want 150 million for him. It's actually Bruno Guimaraes. Now, after starting his career in Brazil, it was actually at Lyon where he started to make a real impact, where he played over 70 times across 2 seasons and was so good that Newcastle paid over 40 million for him in January 2022. Now, since joining Newcastle, he's been solid. He's solidified his place in that midfield, especially last season when he got 7 goals and 10 assists. He was unreal for him. However, this season he has slowed down a little bit with only 1 goal and 4 assists, but there's a long way to go left in the season. He hasn't really had a bad season, but I'm sure he'd like to boost his numbers up a little bit. So for that reason, I'm going to put him in C. Next up, we have the most entertaining team in the Premier League right now, which is Spurs, and their most expensive player is Christian Romero. Now, after spells with Genoa, Juventus and Atalanta, Romero actually signed for Spurs on loan in the 21-22 season before joining them fully the season after. He's now played over 110 games for Spurs, and he's really solidified that centre-back position. He's been in that argument of the best Premier League centre-backs at the moment. And yeah, he's been very, very solid whenever he's played. He is injured at the moment, and Spurs look so much worse without him than when he does play. But I'm pretty sure when he comes back, he's going to be just as good as before. He's been a key part of Spurs' season, although Spurs are kind of rubbish. And again, I don't know if Ange's the right person to manage him. But he's been good personally, so I'm going to put him in B. Next up, we have Brighton, and their most expensive player is, of course, João Pedro. After starting his career back home in Brazil with Fluminense, he was actually picked up by Watford, where he scored 24 times in 109 games. He played 3 full seasons at Watford, but his best seasons were when they played in the Championship compared to his 1 season in the Premier League. His 22-23 season for Watford actually impressed Brighton so much that they broke their transfer record and spent 30 million on him ahead of the start of last season. Last season for Brighton, he was so impressive, scoring 20 goals and 3 assists in all competitions, which is better than his only Premier League season with Watford. This season has been just as great, scoring 4 goals and getting 3 assists in just 21 games, but he is doing a lot of work off the ball, and he's been very, very good for Brighton again. He'd probably wish to up them goals quite a bit, but like I said, he's done a lot of work off the ball. He's been very, very good for Brighton as a team player, not just like being selfish and scoring goals and getting assists. He's been very, very good. So for that reason, I'm going to put him in B. Moving on to Fulham, and their most expensive player is actually defender Joachim Andersen. After spells at 20, Sampdoria and Lyon, he eventually moved to Crystal Palace, where he really started to make a name for himself. In the 3 years that he was there, working with Marc Guéhi and making an amazing partnership. Those two were just so good together. In fact, he was so good at Crystal Palace with Marc Guéhi that Fulham actually decided to spend 30 million on him at the start of this season. However, he hasn't really secured himself in the team, only playing 11 games out of 21 so far this season, which, when you consider the price tag that they actually paid for him, it's a little bit disappointing. Considering how good he was at Palace last season, I'm a little bit disappointed so far. But when he has played, he hasn't really been that bad, so I'm going to put him in C. Next up, we have Aston Villa, and of course their most expensive player is Ollie Watkins. Now, Watkins started his career a little bit lower down the Football League, where he started at Exeter, scoring 26 in 78, which isn't necessarily a bad record. He impressed so much at Exeter that Brentford actually signed him, and he scored 49 times in 143 games, and was a massive part of their season that saw them get all the way to the playoff final in 1920. Before losing. That summer though, after their playoff final loss, he eventually made his move to the Premier League with Aston Villa, signing for 28 million, which was actually a club record fee at the time. He's now played over 190 times for Aston Villa, scoring 77 times, but he's more than just your average typical striker. Other than the 21-22 season where he only got 13 goals and assists, he's got over 20 goal contributions in his other 3 seasons at Villa, with 21, 23 and then 40 goal contributions last season, where he was just unbelievable. This season he's got 7 goals and 5 assists, but when you compare it to last season's 27 goals, I think he'll be a little bit disappointed. He's even started to play less minutes this season because of how amazing and reliable John Duran has been, so he's definitely going to be trying to work hard to get his spot back. He's been okay though this season for Villa, so I'm going to put him in B. Moving on to Bournemouth, and we have their defender Ilya Zabani. He started his career at Dynamo Kiev, where he played 85 times before moving to Bournemouth in January 2023 for 22 million. He played 5 times in his first season, and he played 42 games last season, but he didn't really do anything that, kind of stood out and get any attention. This season though, he's been amazing. Well, the whole Bournemouth team have, but he's been amazing, and he's really helped Bournemouth get to 6th place and only concede 23 goals, which is actually the 5th lowest in the Premier League right now. This season, he's been great. He's been a massive part of Bournemouth's success and defence, so I'm going to put him in there. Moving on to defending champions Manchester City, and of course their most expensive player is Erling Haaland. Now, after playing for Bryn and Molde in Norway, he moved to Salzburg, and after just one incredible season where he won the league and the cup, he earned a big money move to Dortmund. Now, at Dortmund, he was just as good, where he scored 86 times in 89 games, which is literally very, very close to a goal a game. And he even won the cup with Dortmund. It was only going to be so long before a proper giant in Europe came calling, and that's exactly what happened when Manchester City signed him for 51 million ahead of the 22-23 season. That season we all know how amazing he was. You know, he won the Golden Boot, and of course he helped Man City win the treble. Now, last season, again, Erling Haaland won the Golden Boot, back-to-back Golden Boots, and of course they won the league as well last season, thanks to him. This season, though, things haven't really been going that easy for him at Manchester City. He started the season off amazingly, scoring 9 goals in his first 4 games, but in his last 14 games, he's only scored 5 goals. He's only scored 2 goals in the last 8 as well, and to be honest, he just really doesn't look like himself at all. He is second in the Golden Boot race, and genuinely 14 goals in 19 games is not bad at all. But he's on an awful bit of form right now, and you know, because of the way he set the bar so high for himself from his time at Dortmund and his time at Manchester City, he should be really disappointed with himself, and for that reason I'm going to put him in C. Moving on to Nottingham Forest, and their most expensive player is their defender, Murillo. Murillo started his career in Brazil with Corinthians, where he only played 13 times, but that was enough. Forest saw enough, and they signed him for 12 million ahead of the start of last season. Now, Forest did only finish 1 place above the bottom 3 last season, but Murillo himself had personally an amazing season. He was pretty good, playing 36 times, and he actually picked up Forest Player of the Year as well. This season, he's been a massive part of Forest's success, where he's played every single game, only conceding 19 goals, which is actually the 3rd lowest, and Forest do currently sit in 2nd, so for that reason, I've got to put him in A. Moving on to Arsenal, and there could only be one player. It's Bukayo Saka. Since making his debut in 2018, Saka is now on his 7th season at Arsenal, and he hasn't really had a bad season at all, and he's only getting better and better by the year. Last season, he got 39 goals and assists, and this season, he's already on 22. I know he's just picked up an injury, and he's going to be out for a very, very long time, but I still think when he comes back, he will beat his total from last season. Just because he's on absolute fire right now, and Arsenal themselves do look pretty good, so it's only right I'd put him in S. Staying in London with Chelsea, and let's be honest, it was always going to be Cole Palmer. Now, despite actually being a Manchester United fan, Palmer started his career at Manchester City, where he scored 6 times in 41 games before moving to Chelsea at the start of last season. Now, last season, he was incredible, getting the most goal contributions in the league with 22 goals and 11 assists, and just finishing 2nd in the Golden Boot race behind Erling Haaland. This season, he's been just as good, getting 12 goals and 6 assists, and he is still only 22, so he's going to get better and better. He's having an unreal season again for Chelsea. He's definitely been their best player, and there's only one place I can put him, and that's S. Moving on to the final team, and that is Liverpool, and their most expensive player is actually Luis Diaz. Now, Diaz actually started his career in Colombia before moving to Porto, which is where he really started to show the player that he was. Now, he played 125 times for Porto, scoring 41 across 3 seasons. And in his final season, he actually scored 26 goals in 28 games before joining Liverpool halfway through the 21-22 season. And Porto did actually win the league, despite him leaving halfway through the season, thanks to his goals and assists before he left. He's now on his 4th season at Liverpool, and to be honest, he's only getting better and better. Last season, he got 13 goals and 5 assists, and this season so far, he's already on 12 goals and 2 assists. And with the way Liverpool are playing this season on the slot, I really can't see him slowing down at all. Diaz is having an unbelievable season, and although he'd probably like to get a few more assists, I'm sure he's happy with the goals that he's scoring, and you know, I can't see him slowing down. He's going to literally get so many more goals and assists, so there's only one place he deserves to go, and that's S tier. So guys, that is my ranking of every team's most expensive player, but let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Was I really too harsh on Haaland, or do you guys think I'm being too nice on anyone else? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Did I get anything wrong? Now guys, I also just wanted to say I hope you had an amazing Christmas, and I really hope you guys have an amazing New Year as well. This year we started, this channel halfway through the year. Next year is our first full year doing this, and I've got so many good ideas, and I want you guys to join me on the journey. So make sure you smash that subscribe button, because we've got some really big and special videos coming up. And if you guys did enjoy this video as well, make sure you smash that like button. I really do appreciate the videos that you guys watch, and it definitely doesn't go unnoticed, all the support that you guys give me, and it really does mean a lot. But yeah guys, make sure you smash that like button, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I really hope you guys have a happy new year. And yeah, next year is going to be a big one for me, it's going to be a big one for you. This channel, this is the year. Next year is going to be really good for this channel. But yeah, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you stick around, and I promise you won't regret it.